Today we're going to talk about Azure Functions. Alright, so Azure Functions is event driven, so it's driven by an event. Serverless compute option that doesn't require maintaining virtual machines or containers. So we don't need to worry about updates or patches, right? We just need to focus on coding or the code. So if you build an app using VMs or containers, those resources have to be running. So basically the containers or VMs have to be running in order for your app to function, right? With Azure Functions, an event wakes the function, alleviating the need to keep resources provisioned when there are no events, right? So you're only using them whenever an event happens, right? So so you're not running it all the time. Alright, so let's go through this video. Serverless computing in Azure.
In this video, we'll discuss what we mean by serverless computing. Let's begin. So as a software developer, you want to spend time doing what matters, building your application. You don't want to spend your time executing tedious, time-consuming tasks like installing an operating system or downloading system updates. The goal of serverless computing is to help you with this by taking care of those tiresome types of server management tasks so that you can focus your effort on getting your application to your customers. So that said, serverless computing is a bit of a misleading name because there are, in fact, servers being used. But what it really means is that the responsibility of managing servers is already handled for you. So in other words, it's an abstraction of servers so that you can take your mind off of infrastructure concerns and focus them on developer concerns. There are three big benefits of using serverless approach. First, there's no infrastructure management. So that's the first big one. And as a business, this means that you don't have to focus on administrative tasks like installing an operating system. Instead, you simply deploy your code and it automatically runs with high availability. The second benefit is scalability. And as your application grows in popularity, you can rest assured that no matter what, your application will continue working under any workload. In fact, serverless compute can scale from nothing to tens of thousands of requests without any configuration. Finally, the third benefit we want to point out is that you only pay for what you use. You see, serverless computing is event-driven, and that means that resources are only allocated from a direct action. So you are only charged for time it takes to run your code instead of paying for the resources if they're not being used. And when all is said and done, time is money in the business world. And as such, you want to be focusing your time on what matters. Using Azure to support serverless computing through products like Azure Functions, your main job will simply be to upload your code, and you'll automatically get the benefits of infrastructure management and scalability, plus a payment model that will only charge you for what you use.
And let's look at the benefits, and I think they've already covered almost all of it, right? So using Azure Functions is ideal when you're only concerned about the code running your service, right? You're only focused on the code. You're not worrying about the infrastructure or updates, and not about the underlying platform or infrastructure. Functions are commonly used when you need to perform work in response to an event, often via a REST request, timer, or message from another Azure service. and when that work can be completed quickly within seconds or less. So functions, and it talked about scalability, and functions scale automatically based on demand, so they make a good choice when demand is variable. um, Azure Functions run your code when it's triggered and automatically deallocates resources when the function is finished. In this model, you're only charged for the CPU time used while your function runs. So that is important, right? So in terms of VMs, like managing VMs, deallocation and running is, running a VM, the deallocation is, that's not done automatically. That has to be done manually, right? You need to physically go in there and deallocate the VM. But here it's done automatically. So functions can either be stateless or stateful. So when they are stateless, which is the default state, they behave as if they are restarted every time they respond to an event. When they are stateful, called durable functions, a context is passed through the function to track prior activity. Alright, so you have two states. You have stateless, which is the default state, and then you have stateful. So stateful is talking about context, right? In terms of tracking prior activity, whereas stateless is it behaves as if they are restarted every time they respond to an event, right? So and functions are a key component of serverless computing. They are also a general compute platform for running any type of code. So if the need of the developer's app changes, you can deploy the project in an environment that isn't serverless. So this flexibility allows you to manage scaling, run on virtual networks, and even completely isolated functions. Alright, so looks like we have completed this unit. In the next unit, we can describe application hosting options. So until then, see you next time.